Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast is number 1411. The topic is Q&A and the title is Fasting for Fat Loss. So that's what we're going to discuss today, is just kind of what fasting for fat loss would look like. Is it a good idea? Does it help? Does it not help? Kind of just a little bit of the background of that. Now, there's different types of fasting. There's really no actual definition of what fasting is. So fasting, if you actually look at the dictionary, is just, it means you voluntarily abstain from food. So you choose not to eat. That, by choice. You have food available, but you don't. So that's fasting. Now, there's intermittent fasting, which is commonly structured where somebody only eats during a small time frame each day. So maybe they only eat between 6 to 10 p.m. every day. Then there's full day fasts where somebody doesn't eat for 24 hours or greater. Now, sometimes they'll drink water, and maybe they do a 3-day fast, so 72 hours, and they'll drink water. Maybe they'll drink different juices. Maybe they'll eat small things. Maybe they consider fruits only. There's 4 million ways people set this up. So there's an unlimited number of variations of fasts. Since that's true, I really just want to kind of talk about the general idea of abstaining from food as a means for fat loss. So is fasting as a regular routine helpful for both for fat loss, both initially and sustainably, and is it healthy? That's basically what we're going to kind of look at today, and it comes down to what leads to fat loss, and if we understand that, we then understand the way in which fasting helps towards fat loss if it does. So using more energy than you consume is how we lose body fat. We basically burn off body fat. So the body burns calories even at rest. So even if you're not exercising, just being awake and alive, your body does burn calories. So if you don't eat anything, your body has to break down body fat to provide energy for basic needs. So operating your brain, so that way you can move your muscles, so you can do visual things. It's basically just the normal things we need to do to stay alive. Our body needs calories for that. So if I eat nothing, it has to break down body fat to provide energy for those needs. If you continue to not eat anything, over the course of several hours, but you're continuing to have to need calorie usage by being alive, the body feels an imbalance of energy coming in versus energy going out, so it starts to adjust. One of the ways it adjusts is it reduces caloric expenditure for non-essential processes. So it puts, growing your hair or skin your nails. We've talked about that before, how it'll allocate less calories towards that. It also allocates less calories towards muscle repair and maintenance. It kind of puts that stuff on hold. Now maybe for a little bit, if you're talking about not eating for 5 or 6 hours, it's not going to stop all of that. But if you don't eat for longer, the longer you go without eating, the less and less and less the body tries to give calories to things. So it's adapting by trying to use less calories. When we talk about fasting causing lowered metabolism over time, this is one of the ways the body adjusts to fasting, is it says, okay, well, if you're not going to eat anything, I'm going to try to use less calories. So if you continue to fast, the body starts to transition into not only reducing calories, caloric usage, but it also looks into trying to create energy, which is one of the ways is it increases cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that triggers glucose release from the liver, so it'll get energy from the liver. It also looks to, in extreme cases, in the longer you fasted, it would start to break down muscle tissue. So it breaks down muscle tissue as a means to trying to protect against caloric uses, because muscles require calories to be alive and sustainable, but it also breaks them down to try to create glucose or energy from the muscle tissue. So why does it do this, in the sense that it protects body fat usage. So as you use body fat, the body starts to try to find ways in which to use less and less body fat. Why does it do that? Well, the body is pretty smart, and it understands that once you would run out of body fat, you would die. If the body left itself with absolutely no energy source available to cover unfed activity, meaning if it gave up all of its energy, all of its stored energy, and then you went to do a jumping jack or take a step, but it had no more ways to fuel that, then it starts to break down organ tissue, and eventually it would die. So I see this actually in anorexic clients. Their body eats away at muscle tissue. They become super duper thin and drawn in, but they might still have some small pockets of body fat on their thighs. They'll start to have actually organ stress, and they might be hospitalized for that. So in extreme cases, you can see that the body starts to fight against fat loss when it feels like it's underfed. So this is important to recognize because also that we can't fast forever. So if somebody tries to just undereat continuously over time, it leads to them looking ridiculously unhealthy, feeling ridiculously unhealthy, and possibly dying. So fasting or trying to eat as minimal as possible forever is not a good long-term solution. And then also it's recognizing that we can't fast forever. So what am I going to do when I'm not fasting? You will eventually need to eat. So when you do eat, what happens? Well, if the body has been under stress from fasting, it's been using energy without any energy coming in. It's kind of like if we overspent our bank account. What would happen if we got a paycheck all of a sudden? Well, you have to pay back the debt collectors with interest, and then you'd save anything that's left over as financial protection for the future. That's what the body does. It allocates some calories to address essential needs that it has been kind of under allocating calories to. It's been attending to your organs, it's been attending to brain function, but it might be giving it the minimalist amount needed. So as you consume food in any meal, you're going to have an intake of calories right away that you don't need all of them. So it goes ahead and allocates some of those calories to those essential processes that it has been restricting. It then stores any excess calories at that time of eating that meal as body fat. So it wants to replace the body fat that was lost, but also try to put back even more, just in case you ever do the fast again. So the body actually protects against fasting. The body's response to fasting is to counter it, meaning that the body doesn't respond to fasting like, oh, this is a good thing. It responds to fasting as in, this is horrible, let me try to protect myself against it. So you'd eat food, and in that moment you'd have excess calories compared to your activity, so the body uses the minimum it needs for essential needs, and then it saves the rest. It still won't allocate excess calories towards non-essential processes yet, until it feels safe to do so, which might have to take several hours, if not days, depending on the length of time in which you fasted. So the metabolism is still lowered for a while, even though you go back to eating normal amounts of food. So you fast, you burn some body fat, but then when you eat again, your body replaces all of that body fat and puts more back in, and it still is burning less calories than it was before because it hasn't trusted you yet and reallocated all of the calorie demands back to non-essential processes. So you actually go backwards. The long term of fasting would be you actually end up gaining more body fat. So temporarily, fasting does help you lose body fat. You will weigh less, which is why you'll often hear studies that state fasting helps body fat loss. But once you go back to eating again, the body replaces the fat that was lost with even more fat. And remember that all the muscles, all the stress and damage of the body, hasn't been repaired. So if you're working out and fasting, as a regular routine, you're going to be gaining body fat, losing muscle. You're going to feel stiff and have more aches and pains around your joints due to lack of repair, dehydration, and muscle degradation. So fasting can be helpful for very specific situations. If you have gut inflammation, fasting for a little bit can help kind of calm down that inflammation. Fasting in certain structures in appropriate ways can increase insulin sensitivity. So if somebody consumes a lot of sugar on a regular basis, or they're type 2 diabetic, fasting can help reduce insulin resistance. So essentially it helps kind of restore to some degree normal body responses to sugar. Fasting can also momentarily, and depending on the structure in which you use, can help improve blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, things like that. So blood markers. Fasting can also help with willpower development. Like kind of testing and building willpower. It can also help build self-belief with achieving difficult tasks. Try not to eat for a whole day, and you're going to realize it does take some willpower. It does take some mental toughness. So there are benefits to fasting, but those benefits can be achieved through other ways of doing it. And the benefits often associated with fasting are only health-based nutritional aspects, not performance and aesthetics. So you might have good blood markers, but you might look and feel like crap. That's not ideal. We don't want that. We would like to have good blood markers and feel good and look good. So does fasting help towards performance and aesthetics? No. Hell no. So the body uses food for energy and repair. So if you have no food, you have low energy and low repair. That kind of makes sense. So we talked about it in a past podcast, number 614. It was a nutrition-based podcast titled The Effects of Caffeine-Fueled Fasted Workouts. So we talk about that, and you can kind of dive into deeper details if you want to look into that. But can you still work out without food? Yeah, you can. It's just not ideal, and you don't often feel good while you're trying to do it. So the body uses cortisol as a way to produce energy, and as we said, that causes the release of glucose from the liver. And you can also use drugs like caffeine to help kind of, provide a source of energy. So you can make it through the workout. But the consequences are the big drawback. So increased use of cortisol leads to CNS stress, which impacts sleep quality, which impacts kind of strength adaptations from whatever the stimulus of workout you're doing. It also, the lack of food puts the body behind in energy replenishment and recovery. So eating ahead of the workout and fueling the workout allows the body to manage damage and repairs along the way. So you end the workout not so far behind in recovery, and thus the body is better able to recover by the next workout. The lack of food also reduces the body's ability to make the adjustments and kind of adaptations that you're wanting to evoke through the workout. So if the workout creates muscle damage, and your hope is, okay, then my body's going to come back and build brand new, bigger muscles. Well, the body's underfed for calories and protein, so it has to fully repair itself, fully recover to baseline levels before it can then give extra effort towards removing damaged tissue and fully building and repairing brand new tissue to its fullest extent. So if you're in a huge deficit after the workout and you don't eat absolutely perfectly, then you might only make, say, 70 or 80% of the adaptations possible from the workout. And then repeatedly over time, you're getting 20 to 30% less adaptation from every single workout. That adds up. And the same is true with other adaptive kind of responses, such as, increased strength, increased muscle endurance, increased cardiovascular endurance. All of these progressive adaptations require nutrition for them to be kind of fully met. So if you work out to produce a change within the body, but you do so in an underfed state, it delays the progressive adaptation response. So it makes it harder to actually achieve the full adaptation from the workout. Also, since muscle is maintained and built continuously throughout the day, fasting limits muscle mass growth and sustainability. All of this leads to the body being in a less than ideal state for performance, less than ideal state for aesthetics when it's fasted, especially if you work out in a fasted state. So can fasting help fat loss? Yes. You can lose body weight by fasting. Now, body weight can include water weight loss, so you just retain less water. It also can help, like fasting can help with like kind of emptying out the bowels, so you'll lose a little bit of weight there. And yes, you would lose some degree of fat, like body fat. And you can lose fat by fasting. But it's not the best method when we're wanting to balance all the pros and cons of all the options available. So often, you get clients, like I get clients, wanting to use fasting whenever we initially start talking about like possibly working together. So they might ask about fasting. And they often ask when they already struggle to eat during the day due to being busy and not knowing how to properly manage nutrition and food throughout the day while being busy. So when they're already doing a variation of fasting is when they start to think that fasting might be a great idea, which is kind of ironic. So they often will have coffee for breakfast or skip breakfast. They have a smaller light lunch, and then they eat the bulk of their calories in the evening. It led to them being overweight, low energy, and poor overall health. Then they hear kind of advice on how to correct their issues. One piece of advice might be to eat small amounts of food throughout the day to better balance calories in versus calories out. That'll help them lose body fat, improve blood markers, and they'll look and feel better. Or they hear another method, which is don't eat all day and eat everything in the evening, or just don't eat for a couple of days. And they're like, well, I already don't eat, so I'll just do that. So I'll just do the thing I'm already doing and expect it to give me a different result. I'll skip the food during the day because it's not convenient, and I'll try to control what I eat at night. But what happens? We don't stay within the parameters of the eating at night part. We use non-calorie methods of trying to provide energy throughout the day because we're drained of energy and don't have enough energy. So often it leads to people consume tons of caffeine during the day to give them energy, or they're taking vitamin B supplements like 20 times what they should be taking. They're eating everything at night plus a little more because they've have intense cravings throughout the day, and before they know it, they're back to where they were before the habit. Like they're back to what they were doing before. So they were given two options. One sounded easiest because it required the least amount of habitual change. So the least amount of change to their habits. So they tried it. They changed nothing about their habits, and they wound up in the exact same place. Same habits, same result. Duh. If we look at how the body functions, it uses food. The more we match that usage, the more we give the body what it wants and needs, the smoother it runs and the healthier it is. The body uses calories and protein all day. So if we give it calories and protein all day, matching what it needs, then it doesn't need to store calories as body fat. It doesn't even need to hold on to and protect body fat. It doesn't need to replace it when it's burned off. It can build the best muscles possible. It can make the most strength adaptations possible. Doesn't have excess nutrient aspects in the bloodstream, so your blood markers will improve. So all around, the body is healthier, performs better, and looks better. Remember again that when you fast, the body starts to fight that process. Fasting is counter to what the body feels like is healthy, so it starts to work against fasting. Whereas if you eat calories and protein all day, trying to match the usage of the body, it actually flourishes. The body improves. It's healthier. So one method is to work against how the body feels is natural. The body fights the process, and then all of a sudden, what are you going to do whenever it equals out? So if you're eating, say you go from eating 2,000 calories to 1,500 calories, and you're only eating in the evening versus eating all day. Well, the body will start to learn how to survive off only 1,500 calories, and you're screwed, because then how are you going to make progress? So the body fights against fasting. But if you eat small amounts of food, and like calories and protein all day, matching what it needs, it doesn't fight that. It loves that. So again, can you use fasting for fat loss? Yes, you can. But it's not the best method. And there are other better long-term options available. So fasting for fat loss, it promotes the usage of body fat for energy, which helps you lose body fat. It reduces inflammation in the gut. We've talked about that. It improves insulin sensitivity. We talked about that. There are benefits for what fasting can do for you. And Lee said it can even improve like blood markers. But one of the things to consider is fasting is not a long-term solution. And it doesn't match the way the body naturally operates. If we're trying to do something with the body to try to make a change, I think it's better to work with the body than against the body. If we do something and the body tries to fight that process, it's just a fight. The whole process is a fight. The body adapts, you have to adjust. The body adapts, you have to adjust. The body adapts, you have to adjust. It's just continual fight back and forth. Whereas if you eat kind of evenly throughout the day to match your caloric usage, you're still going to reduce gut inflammation by eating appropriate amounts, and then you can control the types of foods you eat so they aren't inflammatory. So you can control gut inflammation while still eating throughout the day. You can control insulin sensitivity by just controlling your sugar intake and still eat throughout the day. You can still control blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides. People have achieved all of these results while still eating throughout the day. So people eat throughout the day and don't have inflamed guts. People eat throughout the day and they have perfectly fine insulin sensitivity. People eat throughout the day and they have perfectly fine blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides. It's not that eating throughout the day caused all of these problems. It was inappropriately eating throughout the day, eating too much. Or what most people do is accidental intermittent fasting. They undereat during the day, they overeat at night. They overeat, eating more than they really should and what they really need, and they eat inflammatory things because they're like, well, I get 4 hours to eat. I'm just going to eat whatever crap I want to eat. And, maybe that's not the case. Maybe you do try to eat really healthy within those 4 hours. But then all of a sudden there's a work event the next day. You eat more calories than you should have. You go to a birthday party. There's a weekend. There's just, it's not a sustainable way to do it. It's not something you can do long term. So that's a lot of the reasons, a lot of the background of why I'm not a really big fan of fasting as a long-term solution to finding a healthy way to eat. If you eat matching the body's usage, the body doesn't fight that. It flourishes. It grows. It feels better. You feel better. Digestion is better. Your energy is better. Your performance is better. Your muscularity is better. Your water retention is reduced, so you actually look better. Everything goes better when you match the way the body actually uses food. So that's what I would encourage. If somebody's considering using fasting for fat loss, I would recommend you don't. You're going to see initial benefits. Yes, you will. You will see the scale go down. That's going to happen. If I eat less food, I will weigh less. That's true. You're going to have water retention loss. If you do any kind of cleanse with the fasting, you're going to weigh less because you're going to have to go to the bathroom a bunch. So it's going to empty out your bowels. So you weigh less. But what is your long-term goal? Your long-term goal is to have healthy blood markers. We all want to, try to avoid dying early from blood issues, like blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, all those things, diabetes, whatever. We want to prevent that. But I also would like to have decent energy throughout the day. I'd like to be able to kind of look good, try to get rid of a muffin top. I might want to build muscle, as a guy. Guys are notorious for not having butts. So it'd be good to actually have a butt and have some muscle, if you lift some weights and exercise. There's going to be things you want other than just seeing a number on a scale go down. And if you eat to match how the body uses food, you'll get all of those things. And you'll get fat loss. Often, clients will look better, feel better, but they actually won't weigh less. Especially if they're newer to lifting weights. If somebody hasn't been lifting weights and they're basically their muscles are underdeveloped. So as they start eating healthy and they lift weights, they actually will either weigh the same or they might actually increase their weight a little bit because all of a sudden they're adding muscle tissue to their body. I can't tell you how many times people have lost clothes size, like pant size. A woman might go from an 8 to a 6 down to a 4. Or a guy might go from a 40 down to a 36 pant size. But when they weigh themselves, they actually weigh a little more. And they're like, holy freaking crap. I gained 4 pounds, but I went down 4 pant sizes. That's amazing. And that's so common. And it's because they're finally matching the way their body prefers to use food. So muscles are growing, strength is growing, energy is great, digestion is good. Blood markers have improved, body fat has come down. They just look and feel so much better. So I would encourage you to not use fasting for fat loss. It might be tempting because it's easier. It seems easier to just not worry about food. I just don't want to bother with food. I'm so busy. I have to take the kids to this. I have to do this for my job. I have to do this around the house. I have to do this to take care of someone. Eating is inconvenient. I know that because I have to eat every day too. It's annoying, especially like the way I like to live life is I'm almost always on the go. I'm trying to grow my business. I'm trying to grow my relationships. I'm trying to grow my body. Eating is just annoying because it takes time. I understand that. But I also understand the benefits of eating. So I find quick ways to do it. I find easy, convenient, quick ways, things that I can afford. They're not crazy expensive. So you have to navigate what it takes to eat throughout the day. I do know that could be a struggle if it's not something you currently do. So if one person, maybe me, is presenting you, hey, I think the best way for you to lose body fat is to relearn how to eat. Or you might see another option. It's like, hey, to lose body fat, you can just continue doing exactly what you're already doing. Undereat during the day and overeat at night. But instead of overeating, let's just control your calories. So instead of coming home and eating, 2,000 calories at night, let's eat 1,400. That's going to sound a lot easier. Okay, well, I don't have to change much. I'm still going to just not eat during the day because it's inconvenient, but I'll just control how many calories I eat at night, and then all of a sudden I'm going to be great. I'm going to be totally fine. Unfortunately, that doesn't work long term. Like we said, you have to use body fat during the day to fuel that. The body then, at night, your goal of trying to eat a very specific calorie amount, so say your intermittent fasting like guidelines say 1,400 calories. If you eat 1,400, the intention of that is to not fully replace the amount of calories you really needed, so that way over time you'd lose body fat. But the body can see that. It can sense that. It knows that. So if you eat only 1,400, it says, hey, that was nice and all, but I still had body fat that I had to use, and you didn't give me any more. So let's say, for example, you got paid $1,400 every week, but every single week it took exactly $1,400. You're not going to feel very secure, right? You're going to get to the end of the week, you're going to get a little nervous, a little worried, a little concerned. What happens if I need more this week? What happens if I need more? What happens if I need more? So instead of getting 14, if I'm spending 14, I would like to get maybe 1,500 or 1,600. Be able to have a little bit of cushion in the bank, right? In my bank account. The body's the same way. So if you burn 1,400 calories during the day and you try to only eat 1,400 calories at night, the body's going to tell you, hey, how about a little more? How about a little more? How about a little more? And all of a sudden the cravings grow, the cravings grow, the cravings grow. Then all of a sudden one night you're out with friends, you're at a restaurant, and you should only eat 1,400, but you look at this dish looks really great. If I have this and this, but I don't have the fries, I'll be okay. Then all of a sudden you eat all the fries, and then you eat a dessert. That's what's going to happen. It happens all the time. So I really would encourage you to take what seems like a little bit of a larger challenge right away, which is to learn how to eat healthier. Learn how to eat a little bit of food for breakfast. Learn how to eat a little bit of food for lunch. Learn how to change your habits a little bit. There are quick ways to eat. There are convenient ways to eat. There are ways to eat that will not take a lot of time. Okay? I would encourage you to approach your nutrition in that way. Let's work towards matching what the body needs so the body works with us, rather than using a method that seems easier right away, but it counters what the body needs. The body fights us. We eventually don't make the progress we want, and we wind up in the exact same place we've been. So, can you use fasting for fat loss? Yes. Would I recommend it? Nope. I think there's better options available. One of the ways you can learn about the better option is podcast 1232. It's a nutrition podcast titled Start Here. It literally tells you where to start when you're looking at trying to do nutrition in the way that I would recommend. That is much better. I've worked with 3,000 plus clients. I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is by far the best approach. Okay, so check out podcast 1232. If you have any questions along the way, just shoot me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. I hope today's podcast was helpful. If you ever need anything, I'm always just an email away, so please reach out. Cool. Well, if you like today's podcast or the podcast in general, please consider sharing the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people we can help. That's the whole goal. So we just want to help people live their healthiest and happiest lives. Thank you to the patrons of the podcast, people who financially support the podcast. The podcast is well over $1,000 a year for hosting costs. I give an hour to it every day. I'd love to keep it for free without a bunch of commercials and whatnot. So it's only thanks to people who donate that I'm able to do all of this. So thank you sincerely. Thank you very much. We all thank you. So we all have a podcast to listen to. So thank you very much. If you're considering giving to the podcast, you can do so at our website. We have options for one-time donation, monthly donation, yearly donation, and the website is www.brutalirongym.com. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, anything you want to know, let us know at our email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.